How does it make you feel? And I remember Carly told me that many, many years ago, right? When I was looking at a car back in 2017, my first Porsche, my first six-figure vehicle, and I was like, maybe I should do it, maybe I shouldn't. What if my business doesn't make it? What if something happens with the economy? What if I can't build for more than what I have right now? Well, if I keep telling myself that, I'm going to remain there. All right, welcome to another episode of Mindset Mastery. I'm your host, AZ Araujo. And let's go ahead and check in as you're coming on board. And thank you for joining me on this beautiful Monday. Crazy thunderstorm last night. Jeez, that thing was a bit scary. I had the dogs running around the house. My daughter's afraid. We're discovering so many things about our new house. It's just amazing. Well, it turns out that our sliding doors don't hold as much, are not as waterproof as I'd like for them to be. So we found ourselves like putting towels right by the sliders because water was actually going inside the house. And this is on top of so many other different things, and it's amazing, right? Whenever we decide to step into that next level, it appears there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be things that try to really just slow you down, right? Make you question your decisions, make you almost try to slow down the entire progression of where you're going, so you can focus on these little what seems to be at the overall are minor problems. They're not major issues, but we make major ordeals out of them, right? When you buy a new car and you notice something that wasn't there before, all of a sudden you disregard your purchase of your car and you're only focused on that one thing, right? And this happens often. This happens often where we try to look for the bad in the good, right? Well, that's where all the focus is at. It's kind of like when you go and you do a live video and about 15 people tell you, wow, you did a good job, excellent job, you communicated well, you gave me good information. But then it's that one person that tells you, it's a little off, you stuttered a little bit, you were looking at the sky as opposed to the lens, and it was okay, right? We disregard the 15 people that told us we did a phenomenal job. We disregard how we felt about the whole situation, and we only focus on that issue. And I think that, we're just conditioned that way to just look at the bad, to focus on the bad. The media knows this, right? They get more clicked views, they get more reads on their ads, on their articles, they get more visibility whenever there's a negative, when there's a negative, story versus a positive one. And that's why mostly they feature negative stories, things of bad things happen in the world. But I'm looking at this purchase that I made a year ago, and it took us a long time to get into this home. I look at what's happened and over the last two weeks, and I told you about the pest control problem, right? The pest control problem we had. And we were infested. I mean, there was roaches, crickets, spiders. There was scorpions all over the place. Everyone was freaked out about it. And it took us about a week and a half to get that under control, where it finally started feeling like our home. And last 2 weeks, I actually have been to the emergency room more than I have in years. And what's ironic about that is I was actually going through my Facebook memories, and there's this picture of my daughter. She has asthma, and she's in the hospital this very day 6 years ago. And I put 3 a.m. It was actually 3 a.m. when I posted this on September 12, 2016. I said, respiratory problems are part of her life. We've all learned how to handle and control her symptoms over the years. But every once in a while, the symptoms get out of our control. Asthma attacks are not fun. Grateful to have such a brave little girl. And there's always this but, right? There's always this but of positivity in every situation. Yes, we're at the hospital at 3 a.m. I could stay there with the negativity, just like the news. I could stay there. I could stay focused on that one person that said I didn't do a good job, or I can look at the positive aspect of it. But I'm happy my daughter is safe. But I'm happy I have the resources to take her to the hospital. I'm blessed in that aspect. It's not, oh my God, I took her to to the emergency. How much is this going to cost me? Although that was part of my thought process for a long time. As few years as I remember when I popped my tendons, I was like, I wonder if I just don't have surgery, what would be the long-term effects of that? Right? Because the surgery bills were mounting. The hospital bills were mounting. I was like, maybe I can live without surgery. Because I was too focused on the money aspect of it as opposed to the health aspect and what it was doing for me. So now, many years later, and over the last 2 weeks, I've been at the emergency hospital more than I have in years. And it wasn't for my kids, and I'm happy because of that, but it was for my pets. 2 weeks ago, Chaco, he ate one of Skins, my hairless cat, one of his toys. It's like perfectly round, right? It's shaped like a little fish. And he ends up swallowing that. I didn't realize he had this in his gut, sitting there for like 3-4 days. He was off his game. He was losing weight. He threw up a couple times. We took him to the emergency room, and we figured that everything was okay because his vitals were okay. So we're like, we don't need to move on from here. And then next thing you know, he just gets worse and worse. So we end up taking him to the hospital, and sure enough, they did some x-rays, and he's got like this toy stuck in his gut, and it's not going anywhere. It's not getting any closer for him passing it. It's just stuck. And so, of course, the decision is, do you want to spend this much money? $3,000 bill. And the reality is, of course, because it's not just the bill, it's the joy that he brings into our lives, right? It's the value it brings to our lives. And if I was just focused on the money aspect, if I was just focused on the infestation, as opposed to the steps we took to even get there, then I would just stay there. I would always be negative with my initial thought process. I would just stay there. Always look at the bad versus the good. How much joy has Chaco brought into our lives? Well, we can't see ourselves without him. Of course, it's a no-brainer. Let's remove that thing. No big deal. I'm not going to focus on the cost. Well, a week later, we're in the emergency room again, and Chaco's still recovering. He literally still has stitches on his little belly. And a week later, Skins, we had to take Skins to the hospital, our hairless cat. One of the things that we discovered is that he's diabetic, a little kitten, diabetic. He has a rare form of this diabetes in cats. Like, I didn't even know that existed. Well, it does exist, and not only does it exist, but he got the rarest form of diabetes for a kitten, right? It's not very common that kittens get diabetes. And, he took a turn for the worst here the last few days. His sugar spiked, or insulin. I'm not even sure all the terminology, but he was out of whack. We woke up one morning. It was on Friday night. And he usually greets us in the morning, right? He'll jump onto the bed 4:30 in the morning like clockwork, and he'll start rubbing his face on my beard, wakes me up. I get annoyed by it. But as soon as it's not happening, I miss it, right? I start missing the little things that I didn't necessarily enjoy. And we noticed something was wrong. So we went, and he was laying on his bed, and his eyes were shut, and he was like in a daze. He was off, completely off. His equilibrium was off. You could tell he was feeling bad. His eyes were closed or almost rolling back. And Carla jumped to it and took him to the emergency room right away. And he was literally hanging on by a thread of life. I mean, by a single thread of passing away. And we took him in, and they took him right back to the back and started administering insulin and started trying to stabilize him. So it took 2 days to fully stabilize him. So we're thinking there of like, I hope that he's able to live, because he's brought so much joy into our life. He's brought so much joy. Never did I start thinking about, the cost of it all. And we're looking at the overall benefit and value that, this little kitten has brought to us. It's amazing. Like, we were never cat people. Like, I went 43 years without a cat. I was perfectly fine without a cat. But at the moment we got one, I realized that I should have probably been a cat person since day one. I was looking at Chaco and Boy for a little while. I'm like, I could have probably traded you in for another couple of those. But, we started just really just worrying about him, right? He was only like 3.5 pounds. He lost some weight and not feeling good. And we knew that there was some responsibility. I mean, Carlo was getting up early, giving him his insulin shots, and he just got away from us. Just like, the story with Madeline in 2016. It just gets away from you from time to time. But this is not the time to wish that it was, it wasn't a problem. We decided that once we learned that this was an issue, that we were going to rise up to the responsibility. And it's amazing. It's amazing, what doctors do to really stabilize and get them to a point. But it also requires a lot of money, right? It requires money. And I'm just, again, happy at a situation where I'm able to afford those things and not think twice about it because of the joy, right? I look at the positive, the joy of what he's brought to us. But just like any situation like that, the doctors have to ask, hey, listen, we have people that are ready to adopt. They're ready to take on this responsibility. And they go through this with every person that goes in there, especially when it starts getting higher in price points. And of course, we were like, no, absolutely not. We decided to take this on, and we are. It's not, the money's not the issue. It's the joy, right? The joy that we got from this little thing over the last 6 months, 8 months. And we have to really start analyzing everything that we do as far as what is it, the value that it's bringing to you. Because if we just focus on the money alone, we're never going to be able to create something bigger. Some individuals get stuck on the fact that they know they need a new car, and they know that getting into a new car will make them feel more confident and more certain as they go show properties. It'll make them feel, really proud of the business that they're building. But instead, they focus too much on the cost and what happens if, business slows down. So much so, the negativity aspect of it, that they remain there. They don't make that move. So they drive the same car, the car that weakens them, the car that doesn't give them the confidence or the certainty, and they stay there. When in fact, how does it make you feel? And I remember Carla told me that many, many years ago, right? When I was looking at a car back in 2017, my first Porsche, my first 6-figure vehicle. And I was like, maybe I should do it. Maybe I shouldn't. What if my business doesn't make it? What if, something happens with the economy? What if I can't build for more than what I have right now? Well, if I keep telling myself that, I'm going to remain there. I'm not going to be able to grow. I'm not going to be able to prosper. But I had to look back at it. It's not what the cost was worth, it's how is it going to make me feel? Well, I'm going to feel proud. I'm going to feel like I'm progressing. I'm going to feel like I'm growing. I'm going to feel certain and confident. It's not because the car makes me, it's because it's who I am today. And many of you are latching on to who you were before because of the cost. And not the joy it would bring you, not the certainty and the confidence, the happiness. And these are the things that we have to think about. And sometimes we're using the same computer because the cost of the new one is too much. But what can that new investment bring you? What kind of joy and confidence and certainty can it give you, knowing it works each and every time? As opposed to lagging, as opposed to almost being embarrassed because it's so old. And we have to look at these things. So joy is what it does for you. So as we have skins at the hospital, it's a no-brainer. Now we spent $3,000 on Chaco. Now we're spending $5,000 on skins. And it's like, oh man. Now on top of the infestation, on top of this, on top of that, this, now, we find our sliders, they're letting water in. Oh my gosh, it's going to go all downhill. Look how much money it's costing me. Or, I asked for this. I asked for my pets. I asked for this house. I asked for this lifestyle. I asked for this responsibility. I can't take the good without the bad. I can't take the benefits without the challenges. And this is the way we got to look at everything. But we can also stay there, focus on that one person that told us we didn't do a good job. We could focus on that one thing we didn't necessarily like about the house. We could question our decision to even get a cat. Or you just move forward. You move on. And these are all valuable things that I've learned over the last few weeks in itself. I'm just so blessed to be in a situation where I can just keep moving forward and not get stuck there. Now, trust me, there was a time where I would get stuck on every little cost. Try to find an alternative solution. Or I could keep moving forward. And understand every time you make a decision, you're going to be questioned to slow down. You're going to get questioned. You're going to question yourself to stop, to focus on the negativity versus I'm here. What happened to the joy there? I'm here. So as you proceed through the week, understand that, this is not a situation where it's, has to come with a negative aspect of it. Let's look at the positive. Let's look at what we've built. Let's look at where we're going. And at the end of the day, if we continue to focus on what we want, these little problems will subside. At the end of the day, I want my pets. At the end of the day, I love my house. At the end of the day, I love the cars that I drive. Or I can retract. Or I can regret, and I can stay there. And part of this process is you build that because how I look at life today, it's not because I was just necessarily born with it. I had to, step into it, step into my power by doing the right things every day, by being consistent and committed to the right things at this very moment, to the decisions. And I read something earlier. It says, we make decisions, but then the decisions make us. We make decisions, but then decisions make us. And I think I'm the culmination. You're the culmination of every decision you made. And your results will determine if they're more negative decisions or the positive ones. If they were the right decisions or the wrong ones. But what's beautiful about this is that we're not held hostage by our past decisions. We can change the trajectory of our lives moving forward by making the right decisions. And although we have goals, although we have ambitions, understand this, that if you just focus on the goal and the ambition, you're more likely to fail. You're more likely to fail. Now, hear me out here. If you only focus on the end goal, if you say, I want to be a $20 million producer, and you don't, how do you feel? You feel like you didn't achieve what you were set out to do. But it's almost like you put it outside of you. The goal is so big that you almost expected to not achieve it, right? Because that's what most people do. They set New Year's resolutions. They set these big goals. But if you really think about this, to be able to achieve that goal is to do what's right today. So many people focus on the goal that they forget to focus on the action, on the small win that will get them there over time. The 12-week target book is almost like the simplest form of being able to achieve everything that you've ever wanted. Because it just says, hey, just win the day. Win the task at hand. Don't focus so much on the goal. You're going to become a $20 million producer if you do the small things today. The win when it comes to marketing, sales, and systems. When it comes to being able to confirm that you know who you are through the I am affirmations. It's doing the small things every day, the task at hand, not the big goal. So how do you win and get to that big goal? How do you win to make the decision, get the new car, the new house, to just move through surgeries? You win today. You win the things that may not seem like much today, but over time it becomes amazing. And I wrote this one thing, and this is how I'm going to end today's Mindset Mastery. You are not successful when you achieve tomorrow's goal. You are not successful when you achieve tomorrow's goal. You're successful when you appreciate who you are today. I'm going to read that again. You are not successful when you achieve tomorrow's goal. You're successful when you appreciate who you are today. So listen, we got minor things that we have to do today. But I promise you these minor things will give you the confidence and the certainty to be able to pull off the bigger things. And it'll give you the lifestyle you ask for. Because we got to look at the positive side of this. Maybe you're not where you want to be. Maybe you're not driving what you want to drive, living where you want to live. But you will, and you will rise again. But it requires you to do these things today. It requires you to navigate through the dark, to navigate through the pains. And although you may not want to do it, I promise you, you continue to do these things, your life will radically shift here in the next 3-4 years. And some people don't have that game plan. They want it in 90 days. They want it in 60 days. Stay off of Instagram and Facebook because that's not reality. We have to learn certain skill sets. We have to learn a certain mindset. Otherwise, you'll be crushed by the success. Or you can sustain it because you've built yourself up to that. You have the capacity to make bigger decisions, better decisions. So that's what the game is about today, guys. That's what it is. I appreciate you for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery. And I got a couple comments here. I got detach the outcome and have faith. I love that. Raise your standards. We have had to create the atmosphere. Yes, own it. The new habit, 100. Guys, we all know what to do. Let's just start today. Don't overwhelm yourself of how far you are from the goals. What can you achieve today? The focus has to be on the task at hand. That's it. Complete the task at hand because this other thing is never going to become possible unless you work on the what seems basic, right? Dominate the basic. Thank you again for joining me for this episode of Mindset Mastery, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Badass Agents Podcast, brought to you by AZ & Associates and Do the Work Coaching and Consulting. You can watch this and other episodes by subscribing to our channel on YouTube or by visiting us directly at badassagents.com. And of course, you can listen to this episode and many others on your preferred podcast provider.